You will find that for as modern as medicine is, as modern as, excuse me, as modern as we like to think our country to be, people are very ill-informed about sickle cell, even in our community. There are Caucasian people with sickle cell. There are Middle Eastern people. I've seen people that tell me that they live in Sweden and Norway and they have sickle cell. The different forms of sickle cell are different, extremely different. It can go from what they call mild sickle cell, which is what I have, sickle cell beta thalassemia. They said it was mild, and I might grow out of it. Well, let's see, at the age of 19, I was given a perfect bill of health by my sickle cell clinic for the Sickle Cell Foundation of Georgia, the doctor there. I just had a battery of tests. Everything came back beautiful. Graduated high school, was heading to college. I chose to go to vocational school. I wanted to be an engineer. So I was going to start there. And by the time that I had my 4.0 average and was going through winter quarter into the winter break, I had contracted salmonella poisoning. I went into the hospital with a fever of 108. I nearly stroked out. Still got a little numbness and tingling right here. Took a while to get my articulation of speech back. I used to drool and didn't know I was drooling. I went from 142 pounds to 113 pounds in less than 30 days. A good portion of my fraternity brothers and the sweethearts for the fraternity walked away from me. They thought I had contracted AIDS. This was back in 92 or so. They told me that I would have to have one of my hips replaced because of avascular necrosis of the femoral head. What the hell? What? What's that? The bone is dying. Can we fix that? You're gonna have a limp for the rest of your life. You won't walk normal for the rest of your life. They didn't even tell me that hip replacement was an option. By the time I was 32, I'd had 32 operations. Bilateral shoulder and hip replacements, both hips have been replaced twice each. The salmonella poisoning got into the shoulder capsule of my right shoulder, turned into sepsis, and then it got into my blood, and that really was a fight. The right shoulder became 7 operations by itself. They did that in a week. Took me down one day, let me rest the next day, took me down the next day, let me rest the next day, took me down 2 more days. I went from frat boy, partying it up, doing my steps, learning how to do all the line stuff, to laying in a hospital bed trying to comprehend medical terminology. My mom had been in training to be a nurse when she conceived me. And I remember one day during that first initial hospitalization when I was in there for that fever of 108, of the nurses coming in that morning. And like 6 nurses walked in my room and they're fluffing the pillows and they're making up the bed while I'm in it. And I'm laying in the bed and the nurse is here, and they're talking to each other over me. And they're going, does he know he has to have a blood transfusion today? I don't think he knows he has to have a blood transfusion today. Mr. Bryan, yes. Do you know you have to have a blood transfusion today? No. Well, yes, you're gonna have to have a blood transfusion today. We're gonna give you 6 units of blood, and then we'll see how everything looks after that. Do you understand? No. What do you mean? Do you not understand, or do you mean you're refusing the blood transfusion? Both. get everybody in here that I need to talk to, get my mom in here, get the doctors in here, explain to me why I need this blood. This is 1992. We're still under the impression that I can spit on you and you can contract HIV. Ignorance is bliss sometimes. They get everybody in the room, and my mom is sitting there, and she's listening to the doctors throw all this terminology at her, and they're like, yes, your blood count dropped down to 2. And I stopped the doctor right there, and I said, hold on, let me guess the rest of the story. So my blood count has dropped down to 2. That means that I don't have enough red blood cells circulating in my body to carry oxygen to all of my organs, and I'm starving for oxygen on a cellular level. And he was like, yeah, how'd you understand that? I paid attention in high school biology. And I'm like, okay, so can you promise me that this blood is gonna be clean? And no, they couldn't. We didn't have to test it. And so they leave the room to let me and my mom talk about it. And I look at my mom and I go, Mama, did you understand what they just said? And she was like, no, not really. I said, Mama, all they told you is that your son gonna die. All those big, pretty words, those fancy, long Greek words, Latin words, all that said was that I'm going to die, period. I'm 19. I lost my mind. I thoroughly went into not a death wish, but let's just say it was a devil-may-care attitude. Very daredevil. My mortality clock was here. It wasn't here, it wasn't over there, it wasn't behind my back. My mortality clock at 19, you know that immortal time period? It'll never happen to you, it'll happen to them. I'm smarter than that. Yeah, I had all that sitting in my face at 19. And I pretty much took up any challenge. Tell me to get in the car and see if I could do the dash. Dashboard said the car can do 150. Let's see if it can do it. I'm in the middle of rush hour traffic with my little brother in another car. We're in Susan G. Komen used to have a charity event called the Susan G. Komen Breast Cancer for Foundation Test Drive for Life with BMW USA and BMW of Germany. And you could go there to the car lot in your city, and for every mile that you drove, they would donate $1, and the lot would donate $1. BMW USA in the lot. And you could test drive the next year's model BMWs. We turned it into our own private race course. We would sit there and figure out another route that would allow us to do the speeds we wanted, that still equaled the distance that they gave us on the route for the test drive. And we would sit there and truly test those cars. I'm talking about 140 miles an hour through rush hour traffic. The equivalent of flying through Lane and Olentangy River Road. I'm talking about, it was fast and furious, we did all of it. I've been in situations where there is live gunfire aimed in my general direction. Because I figured that it doesn't matter if anything happens to me, because I'm gonna die anyway. It took a good doctor, Dr. Ferreira. He was my doctor at Memorial Medical Center, now Memorial Medical University in Savannah, Georgia. And he was one of the persons that showed me my attitude, my mental, being positive. He told me one day, he said, Lamont, you're the best example of mind over matter that I've ever seen. And I looked at him like, what? What are you talking about? He says, when you're in the hospital and family and friends come to visit you, your hospital stay is about 3 days. But when nobody comes to check on you, you're in here for about 2 weeks. So mental can influence the patient's health greatly. Know that when you see us in the ER or in clinic, especially ER, you might be seeing us on a very bad day. Stress can set off sickle cell. Not eating right can set off sickle cell. I know a young man back in Savannah right now that suffers with the leg ulcers, and he has constant crisis because he wants to drink Kool-Aid and he doesn't like to drink water, and he wants burgers and fries. He doesn't want to eat a salad. Those are all things that I had to learn to adjust to. I was blessed with a good medical team, a good medical system. For as lacking as it was in Savannah compared to what I've discovered here in Ohio, we had the Sickle Cell Foundation of Georgia, and they used to take us on retreats every summer. And they would teach us nutrition. They would teach us mindfulness. They would teach us meditation. They would teach us different exercises that we could do to get our physical fitness to a level that we could perform and do on a regular basis, because something as simple as trying to work out can put us into a sickle cell crisis. Going to a job, that can set off a crisis. Lifting something that's too heavy can set us off into a crisis. When I was a kid, like 6, 7 years old, I was terrified of the frozen food section of the grocery store, because just walking through the frozen food section would set off a crisis by the time we left the grocery store. It's a lot of stigma that comes with this. We've already got the institutional stigmas that are kind of built in to medicine, and we're still trying to get rid of it. Things like black people have more pain tolerance. Women have more pain tolerance. Latina women are more prone to over-exaggerating their pain. Black women are tougher, so they don't need pain medicine. All of this is still current. And I'm thankful to Dr. Della-Morretta for giving me this opportunity to speak to the new doctors and the young doctors coming out, so that y'all can understand, A, what y'all about to get into, especially being hematologists, and B, what y'all can do to change it. Because the medical institution that you're joining, that they're telling you is broken, is not broken. It works perfectly fine. The problem is, it's not designed for the best outcome of the patient and the peace of mind of the doctors. It's designed for profit. There's no profit in a cure, but there's profit in a treatment. There's no profit in certain groups of medical diseases and medical issues. That's why in the 90s, a lot of doctors were choosing to become plastic surgeons. They paid better. There's no doctor becoming a millionaire off of being a doctor. I've got a cousin that's one. She's not a millionaire. Okay, I think she just paid off her medical debt 3 years ago, and she's been out of medical school since around 2000. If you do this job correctly, you will rub off on your patient, and some of them will rub off on you. Every time I see my doctors, I ask them, how you doing? How's things been going? You took that vacation yet? Nah. You told me last time I saw you, you were gonna go on a trip. I don't wanna know about the trip. I asked my nurses that. Oh, and nurses, listen to your nurses. Please. They will save your butt. Don't be the arrogant doctor that, why'd you call me at 3 o'clock in the morning for this? Because you signed up for that. You're the doctor. This job is not convenient for your lifestyle. This job can become your lifestyle. I know a lot of you have put in thousands of hours of study, thousands of tears, stressing, worrying. How am I gonna pay for this? Man, this textbook costs $400. I got my test coming up soon. But I want y'all to remember this. As much as you are at the fine institution of the Ohio State University, it still only gives you entry-level knowledge. Everything else is on-the-job training, and that's true for any discipline. You're not an expert walking out of medical school because there are things that could not be recreated in the lab. There are things that can't be recreated in the classroom that will walk into your office and be like, hey, ever heard of me? I'm here. I'm the thing that the textbook said couldn't exist. Me personally, I am a glitch in the matrix. How do I have sickle cell and I've had joints replaced and all these things right here, but I have 3 beautiful children. 2 have the trait, 1 doesn't. 1 has an active form of the trait. She's home sick right now. There are the things that you can say that can inspire a patient. Hopefully there'll be some things that they can say that will inspire you. And I'm gonna tell y'all something, my personal belief, and this is why I said this, listen to your nurse part. Love my nurses, can't stand my doctors. Because my doctor's trying to tell me how I feel. My doctor's trying to tell me what I should be feeling. I'm blessed that I landed here because all of that bias, all of that looking at me with the side eye, are you really hurting? Are you hurting that much? I haven't experienced it here. OSU seems to do a pretty good job of making sure that y'all understand you are here for the patient. You're not here for your ego. Ego has no place in medicine. Even though I know y'all have already seen quite a few egos walk around in white coats. Y'all are still people. You're gonna wake up, you're gonna get tired, you're gonna get angry. You're gonna get frustrated. You're gonna come across something you don't know. You're gonna make a mistake. It's okay. None of us have the button that can end the world. Pull yourself together, you get up, and you do it again. And you do it right this time. Because now you have that lesson added to your repertoire of tools and skills. You can start as simple as building your skill set by doing this. And I promise you it will make being a doctor this much easier. Instead of going, I'm Dr. So-and-so and I'll be your doctor today and I'm here to see about your avascular necrosis of the femoral head and I believe that we'll go ahead and do 2 IND operations to begin with to see if we can contain the infection. How about you start off like this? Hi, my name is Lamont. I'll be your speaker today. Hi, my name is Dr. Della-Morretta. I'll be your doctor today. Hits the ear a little different. It feels a little different. Since we're so much in our fields in America right now, it feels better. I was just telling Dr. Della-Morretta about this little wrench I have on my neck. It is the ashes of a dear friend. I went back home to Savannah, Georgia, back in July. And while there, I visited with some old neighbors that used to live down the block from my mom. They've moved into a nice house. They've got some money now, and I was glad to see them. It was Kathy and Jerry. They're a mother and daughter. Kathy's the mother, Jerry's the daughter. You don't say their names separately, you say Kathy and Jerry. They're one individual. Big Benji was the husband. Big Benji went into the hospital in 2023 to get a stent put in his heart. And he got out of surgery, everything was fine. He was up talking, telling jokes, planning on what they were gonna do afterwards, and he just laid back in the bed, turned white as a sheet, and coded. They come in, they do all the work trying to resuscitate him. He doesn't make it. And the doctor comes out, tells his wife, tells Kathy, we lost him when we did everything we could. I'm sorry, but that was my fault. And she looks at him and she goes, oh, you should have told me that. And he says, well, it's your word against mine. It's your word against mine is what this doctor just said to my friend about her losing her husband, her breadwinner. I've only known Kathy to have a few jobs in my life. Big Benji was a truck driver. He provided for his family. He worked hard. He was a good man. And to be standing here wearing a piece of him around my neck, and it was the doctor's fault. Not only was it the doctor's fault because of something he did or did not do during the procedure, but the numbers required to justify having the stent operation weren't even present, so he didn't need the operation. See, y'all can fix that. We can fix that. We can fix this system so that it is aimed towards the better and best outcome for the patient. And so that when y'all go home, you can leave it all at the door knowing that you did your best for your patient. You can sleep peacefully. There's a lot of red tape in this job. There's a lot of politics in this job. And you're going to find out, especially if you advocate for sickle cell. Another doctor story. Dr. John D. Rowelett. He was a pediatric hematology sickle cell doctor. He took me on when I was going through that string of surgeries and back-to-back hospitalizations. I'm in the hospital for 2 weeks. I get out for 2 hours and I'm back in the hospital. He had the beautiful idea of doing something novel in Savannah, Georgia. Memorial Medical University had a property adjacent to it that was an old public school that they purchased. And he wanted to turn it into a sickle cell ward. At that time at Memorial, you either got stuck in peds until you were about 16, and then they would put you on the floor somewhere else. They might throw you in geriatrics most likely, because they didn't want your screaming to disturb other patients that might be there for simple overnight observation and things like that. So they either put you in the place where everybody's screaming, or they put you in the place where everybody's silent because they're being ignored. He wanted to create a sickle cell ward so that the homebound teachers and all of their students, us, would be in one central location we would even be able to have a classroom to continue our studies while we're in the hospital getting treatment, so that we wouldn't fall behind in school. And here's what the board said. That is an awesome, we really, that is a great idea. We really don't need your services anymore. We will not be renewing your contract. Last time I saw Dr. Rowelett was 2021, before I moved up here, and he was doing emergency medicine at another hospital. Simply because he wanted to take a building that they'd had for over 10 years and did nothing with, except maybe store some old furniture in there, and turn it into a sickle cell ward. These are the unexpected difficulties, hurdles, challenges in your career that you may face. You may be told to follow trends. When the opioid epidemic hit Savannah, Georgia freaked out. And Georgia said, what we gonna do? And somebody in Georgia said, well, Florida's doing this. We'll do that, we'll do that, we'll do what Florida's doing. Well, here's what Florida was doing. Florida, to distance themselves from the opioid crisis, to try and tamp down on it, decided that they weren't going to give sickle cell patients IV pain meds or IV fluids. They were going to just make you force fluids, and here's some 800 milligram Motrin. Have at it. I lost a friend for that. Young man named David. David came from a family of about 9 kids. Both his parents had sickle cell, and all 9 kids had it. David went to the Memorial Hospital in a crisis. They weren't going to give him any IV meds. They weren't going to give him any fluids. They admitted him, so he was sick enough to be in the hospital. So he ran himself a bath, got into the bathtub, and never got out. I lost him in '99. And then I lost his sister April in 2008. This disease takes a toll on us. It takes a toll on the community. I'm on Reddit, and I'm a part of the sickle cell thread there. And right now, what y'all can do that would be a great help is the children that are transitioning from children's to adult hospitals have no clue. They have no clue. They're wanting to know, should they get married? Should they think about having children? Should they have a relationship? They're fighting with doctors. They're fighting with advocating for themselves. They've got things like, Florida's still in that same energy. There's a hematology clinic in Florida that is forcing sickle cell patients that come from children's into the adult sphere to step off of their opioid pain meds to take Suboxone. And Suboxone is not meant to control pain, it's meant to get you off of pain meds. So, there's that. So, like I said earlier, the foolishness, the preconceived notions are still there. And for every one of y'all sitting here, from what I've discovered, because I didn't know this when I was younger, there's a sickler that looks just like you. Every last one of y'all. It can be double recessive. It can be double recessive. Punnett Square, those 4 boxes, wasn't nearly complicated enough to explain it. We have to do better. Everywhere I go, when I do my job, by the way, I'm Batteries Plus first corporate delivery driver. My job is literally to haul lead and lift weights all day. And I do that with the bilateral shoulders and hips. I might move 2,000 pounds worth of lead in a day easy by myself. But every place that I stop, every client that I speak to, I try and leave everybody with this message because it's desperately needed at this time. Be better to yourself. Go easy. You're doing your best. Keep pushing. You'll be all right. It's just a moment. It will pass. It really is. 2, be better to the people around you. Be better to others. 3, stand up for each other. I saw a short on YouTube recently where a professor walks into class and he berates this one student. He's trying to teach them citizenship, and he berates this one student, tells the student, "You need to get out of here. I don't want to see you in my class no more." And nobody stood up and said anything. And he asked them, "Was that fair?" And they were like, "Nah, that wasn't right. That wasn't fair." He said, "Okay, why didn't y'all say anything?" Because it wasn't you. And I think there's a quote from the end of World War II that goes something like, "When they came for the black man, I said nothing because it wasn't me. When they came for the Arabs, I said nothing because it wasn't me. And finally, they came for me, and there was nobody else left to stand up for me. So we need to stand up for each other. We need to remember we're all in this together. Whether you're a doctor, whether you're the patient, we are this system. The people at the top, they're not going to get out of their beds. They're not going to leave their mansions to come push buttons, turn on lights, and make things operate. And don't get so lost in the politics and the position climbing that you forget to be you. When you get to that point in your career where you can look back over 20, 30 years, think about it now. What kind of doctor do you want to say that you have been? What kind of impact, what kind of footprint do you want to be able to say that you left on medicine, on society, on this world? Because y'all see all this gray? I'm on my way out this world. My generation is Generation X. We're not Generation X because we're the 10th generation. We weren't Generation X for any numerical value or anything. We were Generation X because we were the lost generation. They didn't expect anything from us. We were coming out of the beginning of the crack epidemic and gang wars. We were the generation they said wouldn't make it to 25, just off of street violence alone, not to mention having an illness to contain. So, y'all are the future. Y'all the new guys. Y'all the next ones up. So for all y'all smart kids, remember this. You're not as smart as you think you are, number one. I was that person. I thought that everybody around me was dumb. I really did. I was arrogant and just knew everything. I read, I watched documentaries. I'm a walking file cabinet of some of everything. Being in the hospital, you get a lot of time to do that stuff, so, you know, might as well be productive. But Y'all are the next move on the chessboard. They're going to try and twist your minds. Because we're not talking about this politics here in the school. We're talking about everything. Everything is going to push you one way or the other. Friends, family, they're going to question you. They're going to ask you, why do you want to do this? Why do you want to specialize in this? Couldn't you specialize in something else that makes more money? Well, that's the problem with the world right now. Money's not the end all be all. People are. People are. Your legacy will be remembered by people. These buildings with names on them, when the people are gone, who's going to understand what these buildings mean? Y'all seen the videos, sit there and see a tool or an instrument from the 1800s and try and identify what you think it was made for. That's the kind of short-term presence that we can have. But it's the people that open the books and see your name and read your story that will remember you. And I've had some very good doctors that have made some very important changes in my life. Dr. Della-Morretta, you've been here, what, about 2 years now?
Almost 3.
Almost 3? I've been here since 2021. In fact, the day I came to hematology, my very first day in hematology was the very last day of the former director. So I got to meet her, and she was out. For a couple of months, there was no director. I got Dr. Cronin in, got Dr. Amico in, and okay, still never director. Then Dr. Crawford came in, then they brought you in. Now this whole time, I've been saying, hey guys, I do spoken word poetry, I like to speak, I do public speaking engagements. If there's anything that you need me for, let me know, I'd be willing to do it. And they all went, okay, when we get something, we'll let you know. If we get something, we'll keep you in mind. I said that to Dr. Della-Morretta once, one time. And she hit me up and was like, hey, Lamont, would you be interested in being a part of a sickle cell panel? I was like, sure. I thought she meant some sicklers and some doctors from OSU East hematology talking about how we can make the practice better. She told me to come here. I get here and I see, chomp. And I'm like, ooh, all right, I know how to play this song. Let's do it. First time it was me and another sickler named Julia. I got about 45 minutes by myself before Miss Julia finally made it in. And then they asked me back. And Miss Dr. Della-Morretta wasn't there that day. But I got 2 hours that time. And I got the chance to talk about my life, my dreams, my accomplishments, that thanks to good doctors, I'm still here to have. I have grandkids, y'all. I have 2 granddaughters. My oldest son is 29 on May 7th. I have a stepson that will be 17 on the 25th of this month. I will be 54 on the 20th. His mom just turned 37 on the 9th. I have an 11-year-old daughter that will be 12 on April 13th. And I have a 3-year-old that just turned 3 on December 9th. My 29-year-old has given me 2 granddaughters. I never thought any of this was possible. I never thought any of this was possible. Because in high school, in the 9th grade, social studies class, the continent of Africa, the last paragraph in the chapter was one sentence about sickle cell. That most sickle cell patients do not live beyond the age of 14. 14 years old is what I was at the time. 19 years old, I already told you about. I freaked out those 2 occasions. And it took me till I was about 36 to realize, holy fudge, dude, you're still here. You've got to make up for some stuff. I wasn't necessarily loafing off, but I wasn't putting in the correct work that I needed to. And good doctors, like you guys can be, have encouraged me to do better and be better. If y'all have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. Go.
When you were 19, you said that you were put in the hospital. I would like to hear more about that treatment, how long you were there for, and when did you start to be able to get kind of reacclimated back in classes, to society? How long did that process take?
So I went in the hospital on Martin Luther King Day of 1992. I was in there until about this time. I was literally in there just shy of 30 days. 6 units of blood. They gave me an ice blanket. Basically, instead of it being a heating pad, it was just this huge pad that had a little machine about the size of a two drawer file cabinet that pumped cold water through the little blanket they had on me. And they put this pad on me with a thermometer, a rectal thermometer, and they left me on that ice pad for about 72 hours, trying to break my fever. And I kept begging the nurses, could they let me flip over on my side? Because I could feel the heat trapped between my body and the bed. And I was telling them that I'm cold now. I'm actually cold. I think it's worked. We can stop now, guys. And could I just roll on my side? And they wouldn't let me. And they had me packed down with ice up under my arms. They had the ice blanket on me on top of that. And finally, one of the nurses came in on the 3rd day and just let me roll over onto my side for 2 minutes, and literally my temperature dropped. My body had been trapping the heat, and it kept the temperature up, so that they kept thinking that I was sitting at 108 that whole time. I had hallucinations. I had a very, very vivid dream. And it's wild because this story is crazy. I had a dream that an entity that looked like Little Red Riding Hood, but it was made out of blue flames. Just the hood, I couldn't really see the face, and it was 3 of those entities that walked up to me in this dream, and it was just a black space, and it said, "You're sick." I said, "I know." It said, "You're dying." I said, "I know." It said, "I can give you power." And I laughed. I said, "My God gives me all the power that I need." And when I said that, this thing turned into a huge 7-foot muscled, elf-eared warrior made out of orange and red angry flames. You could see the musculature, you could see the bones. They were orange flames. And me and this thing fought. We battled through space, through time, through dimensions. I'm talking about, we were out in the middle of the galaxy fighting amongst stars and comets, and came back down, and I landed in the hospital bed, and I woke up, and I looked around the room, and it was a corner room, and it was shaped like a triangle. The ceiling was shaped like a triangle. And I'm laying in the bed, and I'm trying to figure out where I'm at. And finally I saw the TV was up high, and I was like, okay, the only place you see TVs up like that is a hospital. And then I saw the sharp spin, and I couldn't recognize the wallpaper pattern and all this. And I was never so glad to be in a hospital bed in my life. And what makes this story crazy besides that was that almost 20 years to the day I was sitting at home binge watching Doctor Who. And there's an episode of A Christmas Carol. And in this episode, you have dead bodies getting up and walking around. Doctor Who traces the source of these dead bodies to this funeral home, and there's a breach in dimensions there. And in that breach is a hooded, flame-shaped figure that's talking about wanting to cross over into this dimension. And when Doctor Who made it angry, it turned into the exact same elf warrior that I fought in my dream 20 years ago. So if you don't think that we're connected, you tell me how many people it takes to come up with a TV show with sci-fi effects and the artist's illustrations and the director's vision for the scene to bring something that I saw in a dream 20 years ago to life. It has been a very strange journey for me. Eventually, they released me from the hospital, like I said, about 30 days after I went in. While I was in there, I kept pulling myself up in the bed by my right arm because the nurses would say, pull yourself up in bed, because I'd be slouched down in the bed all the time. And they'd come in and say, pull yourself up, so I'd do that. And one time I did it, my shoulder cracked. I cracked my shoulder capsule. The salmonella poison into my bloodstream got into the shoulder capsule, swole my shoulder up to the size of a grapefruit. And I went home before the infection got really bad. So when I got home, I didn't have a fever anywhere else. I just had a fever here. And I got my mom to take me back to the hospital. She dropped me off that morning and was like, I got to go pay these bills. Nobody else gonna pay them but me. And she dropped me off at the emergency room. And I'm there with the doctor, Dr. Holtzclaw. He became my orthopedic surgeon. He aspirated my right shoulder and found out that my synovial fluid was the color and consistency of pus. And once he got the test back and confirmed that it was an infection, he told me I would have to have emergency surgery. And that prior hospital stay for the 108 fever, they'd already did a cholecystectomy. So that was my first operation. But then that week after I got out, I was back in the hospital. And that's when they did the 7 operations to my right shoulder to clear out the infection. My right arm ended up being in a sling for about a year and a half. I never really recovered full mobility. Like, I can do this with my left arm, but I can't do it with my right arm. I bucked on my therapy. It's insane to ask somebody to put themselves in pain, but it's necessary in order to get the results that would allow me to be able to do what I can do with this side. That was a lot of time in bed. That was a lot of finding out who my real friends were. That was hard. That was hard. I was in a real dark place. That was hard. I had already hit that wall of like senior year of high school, realizing that, oh my gosh, I am finally done with this whole get up in the morning and be somewhere because somebody says I gotta be there. Wait, you said what? I gotta have a job. I gotta get up in the morning and go to a job. Why can't I work at night? I don't like mornings. And even though I got that time, that downtime, I was enjoying school. I was in vocational school taking up electronics engineering technology. I was learning how to code. I was learning how to draft. And like they were just bringing computers in, so I wasn't just learning how to use CAD and on the computer. That was just coming in. That was actually furthering my program. I was sitting with an old school draftsman's board with a square and compass and reading blueprints and drawing blueprints. So I was enjoying what I was doing. And I tried to go back to school after a year. So let's say 93, 94, I went back to school. And I got sick again and ended up back in the hospital for a long period of time. And I tried to come back one more time within that year. And got sick again. It just wasn't working, and I just kind of went off into the wind and lived life and got married, got divorced, had my first child, got married, divorced, and all that, and just kind of bounced around, more reactionary than living. You know, I became that friend that everybody knew was home and had nothing to do. So it wasn't uncommon for me to walk out my front door saying I'll be back and end up 3 states away with no money in my pocket and make it back home. Because a friend would call me up, hey man, what you doing? Nah, you wanna ride with me? All right, where we going? Tennessee? All right. And off we went. So there was that kind of devil may care, daredevil mentality about just doing it. And in doing so, I found the freedom that you can accomplish a lot when you don't let the fear of just what you're scared of and the fear of what you think somebody else is going to say stop you. I think that's what people mean by being fearless.
You can tell them about like a typical pain episode for you, what that looks like in the hospital.
Now, okay, one of my favorite stories, because it encompasses a little bit of everything. A crisis can go from 0 to 100 real fast. So this particular time, probably somewhere around 2014. Yeah, 2014. My girlfriend Lauren was pregnant with Anna at the time. And I get hospitalized. It's not that bad. On a scale of 1 to 10, it's a 6. I operated a 3 normally. I'm in level 3 pain right now. That's normal. It's background noise. It's like walking into an electrical room and hearing that buzz in your ear. It doesn't distract you, doesn't bother you like that. You just know it's there. If I can describe what a pain crisis feels like physically, you've all had the experience of having a blood pressure cuff on your arm get a little too tight. It's like that, but it can move. So it might be in your arm for an hour, and then it might shift to your knee. It might move to your back. And this particular time, I was in the bed. It was a Friday. And I'd been laying with one leg from under the cover, and I fell asleep. And when I woke up, my leg was super cold. And I got up and I put my leg under the blanket and I tried to warm it up, and I could feel it starting to throb. I could feel that crisis starting to set in. And I got up out of the bed and grabbed a PCA pole and went to the nurse's desk, and I said, hey, I'm gonna go downstairs and have a smoke. I think my crisis is about to get worse, and I'm gonna try and walk this off. I'm going downstairs, I'll be back. And I go downstairs, and I'm outside in the sunshine. I'm trying to warm up, and I'm smoking, and I'm walking. I'm trying to shake this leg. I'm trying to get some flow in it. I go back upstairs and I walk up to the nurse's station. I said, hey, find my nurse and let her know to call my doctor because this is about to get bad. I went in the room, got in the bed, and that was it. I started screaming and was arcing off the bed. My heels were on the bed, my head was on the bed, the rest of me was in the air. And I remember my little brother, my best friend, walking in the room at some point, and he looked at me. I saw him bend the corner. When he bent the corner, he stopped and he looked at me. And I begged him, I said, please, please make it stop. And he's like, what you want me to do? I said, give me my gun. He's like, where's your gun? It's in the nightstand. And he walked over to the nightstand, he opened the drawer. Sure enough, my gun was in there. He dropped the magazine, he checked the chamber because he knows me, there was one in the chamber. And he put everything in his pocket and he went to the nurse's station, he got the nurse. I woke up Saturday morning and the nurse was sitting in the chair by my bed. And I looked at her and I said, what are you doing here? She said, I've been here all night. I said, what time is it? She said, it's 8 a.m. I said, it was 8 p.m. the last time I looked at the clock. She said, yeah, you were screaming all night. And I said, okay, but why are you here? And she pulled out a syringe of morphine and said, because I've been giving you morphine all night. I asked the charge nurse, could I take my patients and shift them to the other nurses so I could sit with you? And she reached in her other pocket and she pulled out a syringe of adrenaline. She said, this was just in case your heart stopped. So a crisis can change drastically in a short amount of time. It can go from being fine to not fine. So don't think that it's supposed to be a certain line, a certain level. It can escalate. It can go up, down. Just as you think that the numbers look good, just because my blood work looks good doesn't mean that I'm actually feeling good. That's something else that we fight with the sicklers, is trying to align the metrics that doctors use to try and have their best guess to understand how much pain we're in versus how much pain we're in. OSU is coming up with, I don't know where they're at with this, but a couple years ago, I participated in a research study they were doing here where they were coming up with a device that would magnetize a blood sample to see how many cells would stick, because they began to realize that during crisis, the magnetivity, yeah, the magnetism of the red blood cell changes so that more would stick or less would stick.
Yep.
So hopefully that device will actually be something to give y'all an actual guide to go by, because right now it's just in the air, it's just ether. How do you feel? It's subjective. And I'm trying to teach the young sicklers how to separate their pain. Right now, my 3 is muscular skeletal pain. It's because of my joints. It's because of my back from work yesterday. It has nothing to do with my sickle cell. I have no sickle cell pain in my body right now. That's not to say it won't be the same later this afternoon. Anybody else?
If not, then we'll go ahead and wrap up.